When a religion has to give a "we are not a cult" talk, what does that tell you about that religion? I'll tell you what it tells me, and that was I needed to do some research. And I didn't dig deeply, but I'm pretty familiar with the idea. My name is Jeff, and I want to talk to you today about cults and what does it mean when they feel the need to tell people they're not a cult. You see, on my feed on my phone, I get bits and pieces from a couple of different religions. Now, one of these religions had like a week's worth of discussions they would have with their members. And one of these discussions was how to tell others that we are not a cult, right? Our religion is not a cult. So I Googled, what does it mean when a religion feels the need to give lectures on why they are not a cult? And this is what it told me. It says official "we are not a cult" lectures usually means, and we know it always means, at least to me, it usually means that they are on a defensive. In other words, this is something that's been brought up and brought up and brought up. And the ironic thing about having to give that lecture is they actually mirror cult-like language. Is that the right word? They look more cultish by giving that talk. And then the article brings out how healthy religious movements do not dedicate lectures to convince the public or their own members that they are not a cult. When cults give this talk, it usually triggers the us versus them mentality, or the dynamic. I think they use us versus them dynamic. Leaders always frame criticism as attacks by outsiders. You know, people that aren't among that special group of people. They say it's coming from hostile media. Like, say if they have a problem with certain types of child abuse in those organizations, and it becomes a part of a news story, the first thing these religions will do is say, "That's not us. That's that devil. He's telling them to say that about us." But we know that's not true, don't we? They frame this criticisms as attacks by ex-members. And sometimes they'll say, "That's just the devil testing your faith," right? And we're going to talk about why they say that in just a minute. You see, a cult has what we call an authoritarianism problem, I guess. You see, these cults or these high control religions, they demand unquestioning loyalty to their leaders. Or, and again, this is the article's words, not mine, a body of elders. So they demand this unwavering, unquestioning loyalty to that set of leaders or that leader. Healthy religions have systems of accountability. They even encourage critical thinking, whereas your cults or your high control groups or your high control religious groups, they really frown on critical thinking. It's not encouraged. Cults or these high control groups, they really want to clamp down on your information. They want control of that information. they'll want you to sever ties with family members, or at least curtail your involvement with them, right? Because they don't want that critical thinking being brought in from outsiders. They don't want you getting information from family members or critical media, such as what you might find on YouTube or other channels of social media, Facebook groups, whatever. And they especially want to control information coming from ex-members. Your cults or your high-control religious groups, they don't even want you to dig too deeply in their own past. They do not want you to search the origins of the religion very often, or a lot of times, unless it's all in-house. Now, I've known of different groups that'll let you do the research in-house using what they've deemed to be fit for you to see. They don't want you to go on into the past and looking into the court cases from the late 1800s or the early 1900s. They don't want you to find out these people have bought giant mansions and drank themselves to death, or whatever the case may be, right? They want you to stay focused on what they tell you. One thing a cult will do is they'll tell you how dangerous ex-members are. Don't talk to them. That's a danger. It's a danger to your spirituality. Which, and again, these aren't my words, they came from the article. This is classic cult behavior. It's a classic cult tactic to tell you how dangerous somebody that used to be a member but isn't anymore becomes or is. They'll be talking to you with the Satan whispering in their ear, right? Or the devil. These groups or these cults or these high control religions, if we want to say that, they get you kind of imprisoned. There's no way out without great physical or great mental and sometimes physical abuse. There's a lot of mental harm that comes from leaving these groups, and we'll talk about that too. You see, a lot of times they will encourage family members, your loved ones, lifelong friends to shun you. When these groups encourage this type of cutting off of family members, that's showing no natural affection. I think you know what scripture I'm talking about there. Again, healthy belief systems allow members to leave without any kind of repercussions, without reprisal. They don't have social death for their ex-members. If you have concerns about a family member, or maybe you're involved in a cult yourself, or maybe you know somebody, you're friends with somebody that's all of a sudden joining some religious fringe group or whatever it is, all of a sudden they're distancing themselves from family, friends, loved ones. And you have concerns that they might be in a cult. Well, you can go to different places like, I'm going to try that again. There's a college named Bethune-Cookman University. And they have a cult-related activity guide. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to put that in the description. I think a lot of this information I have came from verywellmind.com. And they have 10 things to look for in people that are becoming involved in the cults. And of course, you can always look up the standard and true bite model. Search that up. And, these are three different things that you can look at to see maybe this organization, maybe this religion, maybe this self-help group isn't all it's cooked up to be. So if you're watching this, and especially if you've stayed this long, I'm going to assume that you are in a high control group or a high control religion, maybe a cult if you want to call it that. Maybe you have a family member or a loved one or a friend, maybe somebody that you're concerned with. Well, those resources down below will help you to see what to look for. And what I would like from you, if you're watching this, because I haven't used the name of any religions on here, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I want you, if you'd be so kind, it would really help out the algorithm and do me a big solid if you can just drop in the comments what group, what religion, what organization it is that this reminded you of when we talk about cults and some of the things to look out for. Another thing that would really help me out, could really do me a solid, you can just hit that like button. Doesn't cost a red cent, and I could sure use the help. I've got a bunch of videos, and I know they're not the best videos, but it doesn't cost a penny, like I said, to hit that like button. Put me on that algorithm a little bit, so maybe someday when I get better at this, somebody might actually want to see the videos. My name is Jeff. I am the Rocking Chair Philosopher, and I do hope you have just a wonderful day. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.